you excrete adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol and a lot of sugar, which is like prepared from that hormones. Normally, we would breathe faster and deeper, but we don't because it's cold stress. We breathe faster and more shallow. It's not productive. Not enough oxygen, not enough acids out, carbon dioxide. So this cold stress narrows blood vessels and it exhausts our energy metabolism. You can see that also in other studies that the acetylcholine, which is like vagus relaxation. No, that's all wrong. It's all wrong here. Sorry, it's all, forget it. Somebody, that's all nonsense. So, vagus is acetylcholine, and it retains potassium. Adrenaline is parasympathicus, and it retains salt, sodium chloride. That's animal data from the beginning of the last century. So these hormones have a direct influence on our excretion and retention of essential electrolytes. And catecholamines are good, normally. Stress causes acidosis, and that's good, normally. Because normally you run around, you get active, you do something with the stress, fight, flight, or whatever, you go running, or we don't act it out anymore, we sit it out. So we have all that sugar in the blood that doesn't get metabolized. We have all the change of electrolytes in the blood, not enough oxygen. So we have a build-up of stress hormones and sugar and acids that's not metabolized how it would be with a normal stress reaction. That's the problem with cold stress. That's why it causes also a latent acidosis. The normal purpose of stress would be to cause also an acidosis, like if you run lactate acidosis, your absorption of oxygen goes up a lot. Everything gets energized. You can use that and you use up the stress hormones. You complete the cycle. You complete the stress cycle. We don't complete our stress cycles anymore. We are just stuck in it. And that's the long-term deadly part in it. And that was only adrenaline and noradrenaline. We know from a lot of material that they cause lactic acidosis and ketoacidosis. You especially see that also in diabetic patients. They do that on, of course, on much slighter degrees in normal people. And the other stress hormone, cortisol, it comes up again and again. The chronic stress response is cortisol. You increase, again, sodium retention, but you also increase the excretion of potassium, calcium, and magnesium. That is why people on cortisol get osteoporosis and so many other things. But it also contributes to chronic fatigue. The membrane potential in your nerves changes. You know the term wired and tired? You react very quickly to anything, but without the strength. Your nerves are very thin. Same as in cardiac arrhythmia. Too quickly triggered, but not really strong enough. So we get unstable on the basis of our membrane potential. It's not that we make it up. It really happens on a very basic level. And that's what's causing that you feel that way, wired and tired. And indeed, you don't have the energy for any reasonable activity. Another factor is insulin resistance, hypertension, which is quite obvious. We talked a lot about it. So to counteract these very strong effects of stress, again, cheers, alkaline formula. Oh. actually helping a lot. All right. So again, that's why salt is so bad nowadays. Nobody's talking about that, even the guys who talk so much about salt. And they are never understood by the other guys who say, no, salt never made a problem, we ate it for thousands of years. That's the missing link. It's very important. Yeah. We already talked about completing the stress cycle. Movement, we need exercise. In that way, we normalize our stress hormones. We deep breathe, and this is very important, we activate our sodium-potassium pump. So this is the little pump, or many, many pumps in our cell membrane that uses up 25 to 30% of all our energy. It's that important. It'll only take sodium out of the cell and potassium into the cell. It doesn't do anything else. But it's very, very essential, and when it stops, we die very quickly. So sports activates the sodium-potassium pump. Eating a lot of potassium also activates it, but doing both, it's really very effective. And you can see, in especially these people who are like idiomatic due to stress and so on, when they do both, they take the alkaline formula and they do sports, they immediately shrink and they excrete additional water and so on. You have very strong effects. Of course, you stimulate your metabolism, blood circulation, breathing, mitochondrial function. You make new mitochondria. So normally, as we showed, it's going down. By nature, our inactive lifestyle, less and less mitochondrial activity. You have to remain active to counteract that and to create new ones. And also very helpful is breathing exercises, deep. Yeah, actually we could do that before the break, actually. Yeah, we do a breathing exercise before the break. And what you shouldn't do is that, like athletes, it doesn't end well. You see with Boris Becker and so many examples. Intensive sports, it's not helpful for health. And it's usually a problem of men. Competitive intense sports, again, acidifies and causes problems instead of being good. All right, let's do a little belly breathing, and then is the break prepared? If you ever took such a respirometer, it's quite shocking that the difference between our usual chest breathing, the difference between our chest breathing and belly breathing is a factor 2 to 3. So your volume gets 2 to 3 times higher. Oh, when you really breathe there. You put your belly, no. You leave your belly here. You just really breathe in very deeply so that you feel your belly comes out. And you also really pull it in that you empty your lungs properly. It's better to put your hand there because you really feel the difference if you breathe here or if you breathe down here. You will feel that your pulse rate drops, your blood pressure drops, stress goes down, energy goes up. If you do that for 5 minutes, it's a great way to replenish energy, because our main source of energy is oxygen. We can take in all the fuel we want. Without oxygen, fuel doesn't burn, but only causes congestion. Now, ultimately, what we have is like burning the fuel, and for that, oxygen is the key. And the right ratio of oxygen to fuel. It's like an engine, really. It's quite simple. Just a little more complicated. Good exercise. Laughing actually is also very healthy for many reasons, but you really ventilate properly. You know, if you laugh, you get belly ache from heavy laughing. It's really very good too. All right, so you may know that the inventor of jogging died with a heart attack. That's a pretty typical thing. So don't go for intense sports, but make the sports according to your capability and coronary blood flow, which we will come to in more detail. But now, typical symptoms, short-term symptoms of chronic acidosis are fatigue and exhaustion, irritability, wired but tired. You can see a loss in elasticity in connective tissue, like edema, cellulite, especially increased hair loss, thin hair, brittle nails. Heartburn does get better a lot or disappears with our alkaline formula. Oh, like, oops, acidity coming up. Kidney stones, obviously, and they've been dealt with by citrates for decades. Actually, my father had a kidney colic. He lost practically all his hair by the age of 55, and kidney colic, kidney stones, terrible, terrible pain. After that, he started citrates, typical medication, and then his hair loss stopped and he never got kidney stones again. That was one of the triggers for me making a citrate-based alkaline formula 17 years ago. And another trigger was a pharmaceutical professor who told on the way that, well, people just lose 50% of their kidney function. You have to adapt medicine dosage. And I thought, God, you lose 50% and you just accept that? Now, obviously, you don't need to lose it. It's also a lack of citrate and the problems happening to the kidneys. That's still an early symptom, the kidney stones. Chronic pain, headaches also. So, an early one, an interesting one, is hair loss, which is a modern problem. If you look at our ancient heroes, the gods, they had hairs. And the athletes at that time also had hairs. And modern athletes often don't have hairs, instead of trying a lot to prevent that. There are also studies showing that, but you just have to watch television. So if you go into more depth research, you see even God have hairs, also he's so old, according to Abrahamic tradition. And Adam has hairs too. So we do have a modern problem, which is proven here. Athletes have often higher testosterone levels. But, you know, they are competitive. They are alpha males. Testosterone is not a problem, but it gets a problem if it's converted into dihydrotestosterone. That's the super testosterone and the toxic testosterone. Why? Well, you lose your hairs. That's not really a problem. But also your prostate increases in size and you increase your risk of prostate cancer a lot. That is a problem. So we said that pH is essential for enzyme function. Yeah, and we normally think, so what? Well, so what? That's exactly the problem. That guy has the problem because of pH. The activity of the 5-alpha reductase, the enzyme turning testosterone into dehydrotestosterone, is pH dependent. Its maximal activity is at a pH of 5.5, which is like skin pH. And up here you have very little skin, but a lot of the enzyme. So there's nothing to buffer the acidity coming out of the skin. Our skin is not naturally acidic, but because we are acidic, our skin is acidic. It's not that we need it for our protection, it's just there, like our urine is acidic because of the way we live. That's why men don't lose their hairs here, but here, where the skin is thinnest and where's the most 5-alpha reductase. That's the connection between our diet and acidic lifestyle and male sex hormones. So, and indeed, if you look further, you find studies. I was not the first to think of that, but the androgenic hair loss pattern is associated with a double risk of prostate cancer. Makes sense, it's the same enzyme, just in a different place in the prostate. So at 5.5 maximum activity. So when you pee, the urine goes out right through here, directly passing by, direct proximity to the prostate. So it does matter to the prostate if your urine is highly acidic each time or not. That's just for advertisement. But we got a lot of feedback from athletes ordering Basen pulver. Another very important connection is pain, early symptom also. Ion channels mediate pain to the brain, and many of them are acid-meshing ion channels that play essentially a role in pain transmission. It's obvious if you have a wound and if you pour chloride or even magnesium chloride or anything, it burns. That's what we are talking about. If you pour any real acid on it, like sulfuric acid, it really burns. So pain side is important, but more nasty is the silent inflammation caused by the acids. And it creates a vicious circle. The inflammation promotes acids and the acid promotes inflammation. They keep each other alive, and pain is part of that process. That's why you have pain and rheumatism, fibromyalgia, and so many joints, so many other aspects. It's always in connection with inflammation, acids. And there are quite a few clinical studies showing significant improvement with citrates, also back pain, rheumatic pain, etc. So we mentioned that acids deposit in tissues. So what? Well, there's one very simple acid called uric acid. The one depositing in tissue causing gout, the disease of the affluent, of the kings and the rich ones, because they ate a lot of meat and drank wine and they got gout and had terrible pain. So uric acid, when it doesn't get excreted, it builds up in tissue and makes terrible inflammation. Most of the purines come from animal food, but also food rich in fructose can increase your uric acid in blood. But have you heard of any frugivore suffering from gout? No. It's the meat eaters getting gout, or cheese eaters. It's not frugivores, because it requires an acidic milieu to deposit in the tissue. So it's the interplay of uric acid and acidic milieu depositing, and that's causing the problem. And the fruits bring a lot of alkali minerals, therefore the uric acid is not a problem, although the blood level is increased. Again, you see the interplay. Same thing, very different outcome. And that's the lack of our medicine. It just looks at one thing and tries to understand it. Things can't be understood in that way. And we've seen it multiple times that people just do fine with the alkaline formula in terms of gout. Obviously, you can improve it further with some glucosamine sulfate, as we did in that product. We come to a really basic problem.